Thanks for joining us for this episode, and I want to let you know about an opportunity that we host every month as part of Church Advance. It's the Church Advance Hour of Encouragement. Now, this is something, again, that we do every month, and it's actually very often content that later gets featured on the podcast. So during this time, Brian's going to have a kind of a teaching session, and then he's going to open it up for discussion and questions, and then many times we close out the hour in prayer. And it really is an encouraging time for pastors and church leaders, and it's free for anyone who wants to join. And so I want to encourage you to have part in our next hour of encouragement. And if you want to learn more and get signed up, again, it's completely free. Just head over to briansams.com and get registered for the next Church Advance Hour of Encouragement. That's briansams.com. Well, thanks so much again for joining us for this episode as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches. This is Church Advance with Brian Sams. Well, hey, it's good to be back. It's been a while since we recorded. I mean, when was the? I mean,
it was November.
Yeah.
In fact, and believe it or not, could we have ever believed that something we recorded in November would have created such a firestorm over the first part of 2023?
Yeah.
And we tried to emphasize that with people, try to let them know that.
Yeah.
These things were pre-recorded, but anyways, that was yesterday's news. Today we're back. Hey, and you know what, man? It's the spring. It's a great time of year. The fishing is fantastic this time of year, and I am finishing an incredibly busy season of ministry, probably the busiest I've remember being in a while with teaching and preaching out. I'm actually in Texas in this recording, speaking at a Bible conference. We planted a church in Mayport, Florida in February. Easter Sunday, 2023, we're planting a Spanish church. And I mean, it's just been wide open. So for me and you to try to really coordinate and connect on a time to do some recording it's been difficult, but here we are. And I wanted to start our conversation this spring with something that I recently announced to my social media followers, and it was the fact that I left social media. Personally, I left social media, and I haven't been on social media now for, as of this recording, about a week, I think, maybe a little bit longer. And so literally I shut down my Instagram page, took it off my phone. I shut down my public Brian Sams Facebook page and just removed it completely. My wife changed our personal Facebook to just her, so my name's not even on it anymore, and I don't look at it. And I don't have the passwords to that. I can't get on it. And then, of course, Twitter, which was maybe my more active account, we have taken it and transformed it into Church Advance. And I figure we might as well go ahead and say this before I get into the why I left social media.
Yeah.
But what we did was we turned Brian Sam's Twitter account into Church Advance. So if you were already following Brian Sams on Twitter, you will automatically be following Church Advance. But we want you to know that this is not a personal account. I am not on there. Neither me nor Luke will be doing any kind of interaction. All it is a place to post new podcast episodes and I don't know, Luke, maybe some registration opportunities or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to become and it already is. It's a true Church Advance exclusive account. I mean, we mention it there in the profile information that, you're the kind of lead the podcast and so forth. But you by your request have completely revoked your access to that account. And as of now, I'm the only one who can technically access it. But yeah, we're just going to use it to, like you said, update on new episodes, anything about upcoming events, opportunities, resources that we might be offering, down the road, the conference, of course, when that rolls around again. But yeah, by and large, it is. And yeah, I want to emphasize, we are not engaging there. So it is just for updating you and giving you information. We want you, because yeah, like you said, you had a lot of followers on there. And so we didn't want to just leave them hanging. Yeah, it's all that to say, you're going to just get updates, but we're not engaging. We're not going to reply to messages. We're not going to interact with the any retweets or replies to any of our tweets there.
Any negative feedback. If you
Yeah,
if you want to bark about something, that's fine. Just bark about it
yeah,
to the air, because I've
yep,
also been amazed at how few people even engaged with some of that
yeah, yeah,
negativity. I mean, there was obviously a lot. It became a bit of a firestorm,
yeah,
and that's only part of the reason why I decided that it was time for me to hang it up. I've been on Twitter since 2009. It's 14
yep,
years. I've been on Facebook for a long time. Instagram was a little newer for me. I was trying to catch up with, I was talking to my teenage daughter about it, and she was telling me, "Dad, you need Instagram." And of course, I didn't do very well with it. I was just learning stories, which again I know is so yesteryear. But anyways, so here I am, man. I'm a week plus away. I have not looked at, logged in, posted, interacted with any kind of social media for a week, and in this world where basically so many of our lives revolve, it seems, around social media, what in the world was I thinking, and why did I do this? And so I
yeah,
thought it'd be good. Now I'm not, please don't misunderstand. I'm not sharing this with you because I'm telling you indefinitely that you should do this. I'm telling you why I did and what it was for me that led me to say, you know what, I need to tune this out, and I need to repurpose some uh, time, capital, and just tune some of those things out so that I can stay focused on mission. So Luke, I believe I got maybe ten reasons
yep.
why I left social media. So here we go. Let's shoot.
Yeah, let's roll. So this is why you left social media. 10 quick points. We're going to try to get through them all here in this episode. So number one seems pretty obvious. It became a distraction. Speak to that a
Yeah,
little bit.
it became a distraction. I found myself defaulting to social media,
Yeah.
defaulting to notifications, and every time you get distracted, you can lose focus up to 20 minutes, according to
Mm,
some studies. It
wow.
just it's just a detractor. If you're not careful, your mind runs there, and therefore, when it runs there, it runs away from task.
Mm,
And so, man, I honestly, I took the brutal approach of looking at my iPhone that was telling me how many minutes I was spending on this, how many minutes I was spending on that. And I just, man, I just couldn't take it anymore. I thought, what a
yeah.
distraction from what we're really all about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that kind of leads not to get through too quickly through all your points here, but that really goes hand in hand with your point number two, which is that it became an obsession. And see, because
Yes.
that's the thing when it comes to social media, and I guess any type of media or entertainment in general is the distraction is just the first step. Distraction is, for example, if something happens in here and I turn and look over there, I can look real fast and look back and regain my focus pretty quickly. But obsession is when I look and I dwell and I start to think and kind of see what's going on over there and really
Yeah.
get obsessed with it. And so you talk about distraction, and that has to do with, like you said, getting notified about mentions and comments and all these things. But yeah, then there's that. Now you're talking about your screen time, that scary little report
Oh
that your
my.
iPhone gives you every week, and it leads into that obsession. And so, I love how you're being vulnerable here with all the listeners. So yeah, for you, how did that obsession
Yeah.
really
So
look for you?
obsession, for me, obsession comes out in two ways: habit forming and time wasting.
Hmm.
When I'm obsessed with something, I'm going to form a habit of continually going to it. Some might argue that I'm obsessed with fishing, meaning I have a habit. Now I've been out of habit this spring a little bit, but I'm getting ready to start my habit back up as soon as I get home. But the very fact is, habit forming has to do with something you go to and you continually go to repeatedly. And some habits are good, as we know, and some habits are bad. And I got to tell you, man, I had a habit of checking social media regularly, often, interacting with it, and I mean just multiple times a day, where you're picking up your phone, you're logging in, you're reading stuff, and beyond just my personal interaction, I'm talking about habit forming of reading other people's stuff.
Mm.
I mean,
Hmm.
just the
Yep.
endless and mindless scroll of getting in other people's
Yeah.
business. So that's one thing. But then time waster. I mean, I've got to wonder. I wondered this for myself, which led me to my obvious conclusion. But I wonder if all of us listening are willing to confront and face the fact that we will be spending a couple of hours a day
Yep.
on social media. So a couple hours a day. So over the course of 2 weeks, roughly, you're spending 24 hours, which is a day,
Yep.
which is 1 out of 12. Let's say 1 out of 14 to be conservative, if you're spending 2 hours a day. So that means every 2 weeks, you're spending a day of your life on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram,
Wow.
etc. And if it's not your job, if it's not like you're not an influencer or a YouTuber and that's your primary source of income, I can't imagine any of us could make any kind of case that this is a good thing to do. And yet here we
Yep.
are. Here we are burning through. So 2 weeks, that's 26. Think about this. That's 26 days out of a year, almost 10% of your
Wow.
year is
Yeah.
spent on social media. And when I started facing these realities, I said, you know what? I've got to find something better to do with my life
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
than obsessing. And frankly, it's to my shame that I didn't have enough sense. Which is, by the way, why I took it off. Like, removed the account, changed the password to anything that is existing in any form, like my wife's account or the Church Advance Twitter account. I don't have any access to our church accounts. I
Mhm.
have nothing. I don't even look at our church accounts.
Yeah.
I want absolutely nothing with it. And I know me. When I find something that's an obsession, I've got to cut it. And now I'm using this now as a bridge to identify other obsessions in my life. Something I've
Yeah.
struggled with for years is my personal eating habits and health, and I'm working on that right now. And I'm finding one little step toward breaking a habit is enabling me to take steps in other areas
Yeah.
and break other habits as well. So it was an obsession, and I believe if something becomes an obsession according to First Corinthians, if it's lawful but it's not expedient, and it becomes something that that's overtaking me, then I should back away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you're using the example of, hey, let's say you spend 2 hours a day on social media. There are some stats out there that show that the average person is actually spending up to 8 hours a day on their phone. So you can blame that on social media, games, or whatever, but social media is a big part of that. And what's really it's just scary is that social media started as the idea, the concept, and it's the underlying concept is still there of I'm going to be able to connect with people I want to connect to. So they're going to update, they're going to tweet, they're going to put their updates on Facebook, and I'm going to be able to see what my friends from college and high school and whatever are doing. Okay, that was the original concept. Over the past couple years, in particular with the rise of TikTok, we've seen a shift now to where now the focus of the social media companies, they've reprogrammed their algorithm to start showing you stuff that you didn't necessarily sign up to see, but they figured out that you enjoy it, and so they continue to feed it to you.
Yeah.
And so this
Mm.
this shift in the way that their algorithms are feeding you content is making you more obsessed. And so, yeah, I challenge everyone. And Brian, if this is okay with you, I've actually done some episodes in the past on my podcast on how to just practical ideas of how to break your addiction, your screen addiction, because like you said at the beginning, truly cutting off social media is not a reality for most people. I think it's something everybody should maybe at least consider. But if nothing else, you need to reduce your screen time and your time on it. And so I could post
Mhm.
some links to that
Yeah,
content that I've
please
done
do.
before, just to
And I
give you
will
those
say this.
practical
I
ideas.
will say this to everybody who would concern themselves as far as having a heart attack or not being able to make it. I'm actually fine.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay, man. Like, here I am. I'm preaching tonight. Life goes on. I've got my family, got my kids. Yeah, I have been tempted, honestly. I have clicked on Twitter since, and then realized, oh my word. So yeah, man. I mean, you'll be okay if God, leads you to do it, which is again between you and
Yeah.
Him. But you need to consider that thing, which then the third thing feeds into more like a spiritual issue for me, and that was this. Number three, social media became discouraging.
Hmm.
Um, and again, I know it'd be easy to think we're predominantly talking about the Twitter storm that hit at the beginning of 2023,
That
where
was
we were
certainly a storm.
attacked vehemently by the what I would call the hardcore radical right wing of the independent Baptist culture, the King James only group, which and I'll talk a little bit about that in another recording here in the future. And again, it's not my issue. It is one of the things that I pilot, one of the things that I talk about because it's helping people. But man, to see the ugliness and to see the lies, to see um, the people being treated as if they're not actually Christians because of a position. It's just that's just one element. When I say
Yeah.
discouragement, I'm talking about just this vehement interaction with people that are supposed to be pastors,
Yeah.
let alone Christians. And it's just like, my goodness, man, really, I don't have any time for that. But then on top of that, think about this, Luke. You post, let's say me, I post a picture of four baptisms, okay,
Hmm.
from a few weeks ago, and I might get, 10 likes. I post some edgy, salty comment about King James onlyism, and I mean, it just explodes.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to
Yep.
myself, what's wrong? Are we piranhas? What is wrong? What is wrong with our nature? If we're Christians, uh, wouldn't we want to be more engaging and celebratory of something that is positive and good?
Hmm.
Our family's doing well, people are getting saved, things are happening. That was always my original intent of using social media was that we would use it as a tool to celebrate and encourage one another. And I just now I tried to encourage my friends and that sort of thing, and I didn't always do it well. And I fell prey into some of the discouraging narrative, which by the way, I think I did relatively very little compared to what was, the things that were said. Admittedly, though, I got sarcastic with a couple guys, and when I felt like somebody needed to be kind of smacked a little bit, I felt like I did it in a kind way. But for the most part, I just kind of laid off of it all. In fact, I recorded about an hour and a half of response to
Yep.
some of these guys and decided I'm not even going to post it.
Yeah.
So that's a mystery. Maybe that'll be exclusive content. Maybe we could say if you want that, you can pay $100. It might be worth hearing
Yeah.
all that stuff. But the point is, I feel like again, this is completely subjective, Luke. I feel like there is a discouraging nature
Mm.
to social media where people air their ailments, air their frustrations, air their
Yep.
disagreements, and you just read it. And if it doesn't discourage you, then maybe you're maybe there's something wrong with the way that you view things. That's not to say there's not encouraging things and that you can't follow those kinds of things. But like you mentioned earlier, they feed you what they want to feed you,
Yep.
rather than what you're really trying to follow. So it's
Yep.
an interesting thing. But discouragement is not something I need in my life.
Hmm. Yeah.
I want to stay encouraged. I want to be positive, and I want to have a positive message, and I want to be around positive people. And I'm not trying to be Joel Osteen or anything, but I just do not need negative narrative just sounding off in my mind, in my heart, and in my ear all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talked about, again, to speak a little bit to how these platforms are programmed and how their algorithms work. Again, it was a year or two ago. It was revealed that Facebook, in particular, intentionally programs their algorithm to show you stuff that they believe will actually make you upset and discouraged, because the old saying is, if it bleeds, it leads. And
Yeah.
if it's something that there's something within our human, our brains, that, hey, we are unfortunately drawn to the negative.
Well,
um
it's
you
part of
know
it's part of the fall. It's part of the fall, Luke. I mean,
yeah,
we are
exactly.
we are we are broken, and we gravitate toward brokenness. It's just
Yep.
it's an embarrassment to humanity, and it should cause us to yearn for Christ and the gospel to rescue us. And I mean, I could sit here and bemoan the fact that I saw it in my own life, but hello, we all see it in our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
And Facebook basically bottom feeds off of our base nature.
Yep.
And so, man, if you need that in your life, go for it. I mean, if you need to cry every once in a while, if you need to get mad occasionally, if you need to focus on things that generally most people would be discouraged over, then help yourself. But for me, that was a good enough reason for me to back out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so it became a discouragement, and I think you already touched on this with your next reason, but it also it became a tool of division. And
Yeah,
so, again, you've already kind of touched on that, but let's speak to that a little more.
I mean, my goodness, especially particularly with preachers here, and thank God most of my church people were never even on Twitter. It's just
Hmm.
not as popular with my church. There may be one or two of my men that are on there for various reasons, but what an embarrassment to ministry leaders. What a sad commentary that we would use a worldwide platform
Mm.
to attack other men. And I'm talking about men that believe the gospel. I would
Yep.
challenge any of those predominant protagonists uh, to try to find more than four areas that we might disagree on. I mean, if I were
Yeah.
to hold up, the Baptist Faith and Message or some other conservative Baptist theological statement, we're going to be in agreement 99%. Okay. It's usually music, dress, and Bible translations. Sad to say, we've reduced it to this.
Yep.
Um, and so if we accentuate those kinds of things as the division points, then we are divisive. We should
Mm.
be, according to Jesus, looking for and leaning in on those things that we most agree upon. And and there's such a double standard here, and I don't even want to get into that right now. I might get into that in a few episodes, but the bottom line is, when you see people who are supposed to be Christians straight attacking other people who are Christians, good, faithful, God loving, gospel driven, evangelistic, conservative, Bible believing people, and you're slitting their throats over things. It's embarrassing, and
Yeah.
and I felt more bad for the guys than I did personally offended, which is why I didn't engage it. I just was embarrassed that there are Baptist brothers out there who are willing to take those kinds of poisonous conversations to the world, and then to see it stir it up, to see
Yeah.
sadly like young men following in their wake, just gobbled up with poison.
Hmm.
And I just don't want anything to do with it. That's not
Yeah.
me. I'm not there. People could say I'm divisive. I have an audience. I have a target audience. I have people subscribe to this podcast. They listen to it weekly. My audience isn't that Twitter, those what I would consider far right wing independent Baptists. That's not even who I know. It's not who I hang with, and it's not who I associate with. It's not who I am. And so I just needing to see them pick up on this and run with the division it's just something I'm not willing to do. And again, I could ignore it, but it was kind of hard to ignore. Uh, Now I could totally
Yeah.
ignore it now because I'm not on it. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I left,
Hmm.
because it became a tool of division, and I don't believe in that.
Yeah. And I mean, you could go as far as to say, again, and this, like you said, this episode is not about reacting to the criticism, but the incident we're talking about, the Twitter storm, about, the episodes that we dropped about the translations, that really, to me, is just an example of, you've got these guys that, first of all, they don't have a significant Twitter following at all. Right. Not to belittle anybody's ministry, because it's not about the size of a church, but they're pastoring, a smaller congregation or whatever. Again, I'm not trying to say they're insignificant and that they're not potentially doing something great for the Lord and reaching people, but I can't help but be a little cynical and question, okay, what is your, and I guess we could say we see it on both sides. But that's what I see when I see somebody who's very active on Twitter, and they're always being controversial one way or the other. But then you kind of look up their information and you're like, well, I don't know. Like I'm just wondering what you're really doing to impact, your community and the world for Christ. Because all you seem to want to do is just stir up strife here on Twitter. And Brian, I think, like you said, for you, some might accuse you of trying to do that or be divisive, but I know that it's not. You speak truth. You want to, help people, help pastors and the next generation in particular of pastors and leaders to face some of these difficult things like Bible translations and things like that. But I think for you, it's just great respect for you to say, you know what, fine, I'm going to step back from that and I'm not going to be a part of creating that division at all. And so to me, that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with your next reason here, which is that it hinders authentic relationships. And of course, in the way of it, yes, it can be divisive, but I think what you might be meaning is authentic relations as far as offline relationships. Well, we're going to pick up the next part of the conversation in the next episode. It was great to have you join us for this episode. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss any upcoming content, you're going to want to make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and that you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy this content, then please don't hesitate to leave us that 5-star review, and then also tell other church leaders and pastors about this podcast. We would really appreciate you helping us spread the word. This podcast is hosted by Brian Sams. It's produced by myself, Luke Clayton, and my team at mustincrease.com. We really look forward to having you join us in the next episode as we continue to advance a reformation, a fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches right here on Church Advance with Brian Sams.